Hey, Becoming Me. I am so excited to introduce you to my warrior friend, Kristine. Kristine, welcome to Becoming Me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me today.
It is such an honor. And y'all, so many of our becoming stories are digital friends to me. We've met on Instagram, online, through mutual friends. But it's rare that I have the privilege of knowing a warrior friend in real life or having a cup of coffee with them. And Kristine and I had a physical cup of coffee together at a local coffee shop. And as I heard your story, like I just immediately knew Becoming Me needed to hear your story as well. So I'm just honored that you're taking the time to be with us today. I thank you for that. And obviously, right now I'm hyping you up, and there's people who are like, I'm a new friend to Kristine. I don't know Kristine yet. So take a moment and introduce yourself. Who's
Yeah,
Kristine?
cool. Kristine, a complete work in progress.
Me too.
Little, a little bit of a hot mess, sometimes, but, gosh, I just love family. Um, I love to laugh. I think laughter is the foundation of learning. So we oftentimes we say everybody, if we're laughing, we're learning. So let's just keep going, right? So I love being silly, but I'm like a really good balance of silly and very serious at the same time. So I can kind of go between one and the other. Just a big believer in the workplace being a catalyst for growth, for seeing the Lord at work. Just knowing, I like am always in this like active place of like, okay, Lord, where are you sending us? Let's like get in the workplace. And so I just have a burning heart for what happens there and then how we get to everybody. One time was asked, especially when starting this business that I have today, somebody asked me, do you want to go deep or do you want to go wide? And I'm like, both. And they're like, no, you have to pick. And I'm like, nope, God didn't tell me to pick. He said, do both. So, yeah, so I love like a wide, big vision, but I love diving deep. So I'm so excited to be here with you today because I'm watching what you're doing and that depth of no, this is like your story matters, and we're gonna unpack it.
Yeah.
So I love what you're doing too. So that's me.
Well, you inspire and you encourage me. So I'm thankful that you're here sharing your story. And,
Yeah.
speaking of, we all have a story and our stories do matter. I would love for you to just take some time and unpack your story. Like, what has made you who you are today?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a journey. One, I always say, it's kind of like if you pictured yourself climbing up a muddy cliff. I sometimes make things way more difficult than they need to be because there's usually a nice paved path over here that I just missed. But because of that, I got to learn a lot of lessons the hard way.
Yeah.
Um, I think everybody's probably got some childhood stuff that they've been through, and I wouldn't, I do too. Um, but had just really cool parents, very supportive, encouraged, involved parents. Did a lot of theater, all of that kind of stuff. But always had this like I wanted, like if I was involved in marching band, I wanted to be the drum major, and if I was in choir, I wanted to be the president. And if not always using leadership positions as in the right way when I was younger. Sometimes it was more just because I wanted to have influence, but I didn't really understand the responsibility of it. So to all my friends out there, if I led you astray at all, I apologize deeply. But yeah, just some crazy stuff happened in my youth. But right after high school, some pivotal things started to happen. And although I was in a place of I did attend church. I really didn't have a personal relationship with the Lord. And so there was a lot of breaking of me that had to happen in order for me to be in relationship with him. And so, went to college right after I graduated high school, and then I dropped out after the first semester for lots of reasons. And that put me on this year of just like sitting on the couch, hanging out with friends. Like I wasn't doing anything really productive or whatever. And so my mother, by this point, my father had passed away. My mother was like, "Girl, you need to do something," because a lot of what was holding me back was grief and just like, what's the point of all this anyway, you know? So anyway, I got this job with Toyota. I sent out one resume. They hired me. You know, I was doing cashier work and handing people their keys after their car got serviced or whatever. I had this boss, and he, you know, after working there for a few months, he was so invested in like, who are you and what do you like to do and blah blah blah. And so he asked me to come work in his department. Well, one day I'll tell you more of the story, but I was such a mess, and he just saw something I didn't see. Like I had no idea what I was capable of, but he was looking at everybody for what is this special thing that you have. And he, when I tell you, you could talk to anybody that's ever worked for this guy, like he was able to help them grow past something. What he did is he sent me, I still don't quite understand what he saw at the time, but he sent me to go work with Toyota Motors. And at the time, you take this 20-year-old girl, go work with Toyota about this. They had this signature process management method that they were teaching people at the dealership level. So it taught me all this stuff, and my world opened up. And so I was, you know, hitting the parking lot, asking people like, "What do you love about our parking lot?" They'd be like, "Nothing. This is the worst parking lot ever." I'm like, "Okay, tell me more. What would you like to see when you pull in? Like, how would you like it to be?" And I learned about just like the power of being interested and asking questions and not taking anything at the surface level, and how to respect humanity. You know, Toyota's big on that kind of stuff. And so all of a sudden, like things that I was doing, it all started to make sense. And shortly after that, got married. We had Harrison. We moved to Florida. And then I'm watching, you know, my husband start to have a relationship with Jesus, and just like the shape that that took of like not just who we are as people, but like our obligation to one another, not just in marriage, but to our community. And so after I was working for Toyota for a little bit when we moved here to Florida, and then when I was leaving there, I had another boss here who had said, I said, "Well, you know, my time with Toyota is finished." And he goes, "Okay, good. Because my son just opened up a CPA firm and he needs somebody to figure out like how to run operations and stuff." So I took my white binder from Toyota, and, you know, and like his son and I kind of figured out, you know, like how to implement it. There was so much system, you know, like Toyota Lean and things like that, that I didn't realize I was doing at the time. I had no idea. And so took that, started this CPA firm. It was a wealth advisory firm too, and it was just cool. And then I felt very useful, and very much like there's something about a startup that's just this thrilling thing. And I really fell in love with the work. And so about a year and a half after I started working there, I had my third child at this point, fast forward. And gosh, it was like the coolest thing to be part of this and having another baby, but it was crazy. And so I had made this decision. He was about 3 days old, and I went back to work. And, you know, looking back at the time, I was like, "Oh, they need me. I don't want to not be useful. I got this. Like, I've had two other kids. Like, I know how to mom it, you know, like all the things, because of this unnecessary pressure that I put on myself." And so the more that the company grew over the next, you know, 6, 7 years after that, I just felt more obligated to this place. And not that I wasn't, gosh, I adore my husband. I adore my children. I know they know that. But I would get those little papers from school that would say, "What does your mom like to do?" It would say, "Oh, she loves to work." And yeah, which is true, right? It's all
Yeah.
true. But I lost some of that. perspective on the order in which we need to be paying attention to it. And so, you know, I also became kind of in this, I don't want to use the word obsessed. I kind of feel like that word's a little overused, but really into what it looked like to go a little bit further with clients. And so it was about 2014 at this point. So I've been there for, I guess, like about 8 years at that point. And I talked to the managing partner about the fact that that's great that we're doing tax accounting and all this stuff, but we need to go deeper. Like, I feel like I'm being called to like learn about humans and like how they operate, and like we can't really serve them well if we don't actually know them. Like, how do we help them make these decisions on a tax strategy, or how they're going to manage their wealth by one questionnaire? Like, no, like we need to know them. And so then we opened up a consulting company because we didn't have enough companies. So we also opened up this consulting company that went further and deeper. And I did that as well as operated the other two firms. And it was so cool. And then came 2015, right? A year after we opened up this consulting firm. And I felt like the Lord was like, it's time. Like, it's time for you to go. My doctors, you need to quit this job because it's unhealthy. Your balance is unhealthy. My husband, not happy. My kids, just talking about my work all the time. And like I always say, I'm not a quitter. I'm not a quitter. And then because of that narrative, I would always tell myself, I thought leaving there would mean that I quit. And I didn't understand the dynamics of how it was affecting my family and all this stuff. And when the Lord is saying it's time, you need to be able to respond to that, because you're never ready, you know? And then I didn't, right? I stayed, not a quitter. And so I then embarked on, hey, why not go to school too? Because again, I had dropped out of college. I did all this on a high school diploma, which I believe anybody could, if you're smart and you're determined and you're, always prayerful through it, you can do all these things. And so I studied human behavior. I got my degree in behavioral sciences and business, and that too is a whole story. And then as I was in college, became a partner in the CPA firm. All this stuff happened. It was just achievement. Everything I would set the bar for, I would be like, knock it out of the park, knock it out of the park, except for all the people in my world that were just like crying out for me, and then my mom died. And it was like a wake up, like when you've already been through it and then you're doing it again. I'm paying attention now. And when I tell you, it was such a beautiful, it's so beautiful because it saved me in a lot of ways. I wasn't expecting to do that. Anyway, it's an important thing. And it's important because time's fleeting. And when we delay obedience to the Lord, we are disobedient. Right? And so disobedience can lead to a really destructive place. And so when you kind of get things out of order and you're not fully understanding, like when the Lord speaks, I have to be prepared even when unprepared. And so when 2020 rolls around, right, pandemic, and you hear this from a lot of people, like the pandemic kind of knocked a few of us into action. And I said, nope, I'm done. I know I've been called to do something else. And because I have been delaying my obedience, I now I look like, I was just looking bad. I'm very tired, lacking creativity. That was my cry to everybody, is I feel like I can't be creative anymore. like I'm holding it all in. I'm taking on everybody because when you're an
Yeah.
executive, you have to take in a lot of information from a lot of people, and you don't always have a place to
Mhm.
get that out, right?
Mhm.
And so a safe space to speak, a place to go for more wisdom, for you to
Mm.
discern okay, Lord, what are you telling me, and what about me?
Mhm.
And I didn't do that. I mean, I would look for places, but I never knew where to go.
Oh.
Um, yeah, and he just did this crazy thing, and I kept praying. I said, okay, when Kris tells me, my husband, it's time to go, I will know that you have now given us
Mm.
permission to do this. And I'm not even kidding. We're taking a walk one day, right when everything got shut down. We're walking around outside, and all he said, he looked at me, he goes, it's time. It's time, right? And I'm like, yep. But it was just prayer, 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 prayer.
Wow.
And it was so clear. And so it was time to go. And then my delayed obedience got even worse, because then it was kind of like, it's wild, because you always hear people, oh, I took this leap of faith, and they tell this beautiful story. And sure, like I can tell you the beautiful story now 4 years later. It's really beautiful because I can tell you with like joy in my heart and all the
Mhm.
things. At the time, it looked like I was kind of this like 2-year old where you're ripping my favorite toy out of my hands.
Mhm.
Um, and so it was literally like ripping out a company I love, taking me away from the people I love, um, a thing that became an idol,
Yeah.
which is why it became that way, because it was an idol. And he said, if you're not willing to give up everything, you cannot be my disciple. So it had to go. Um, but it's really cool because it was so loving, and
Mm.
he was gentle with me, even though I was kind of having a tantrum the whole time, and fighting with him. And
Mm.
he led me to Isaiah 58, and like restoring,
Mm.
being a repairer of broken walls, restoring streets with dwellings, like these were things he was so clear.
Mm.
And he was clear because I didn't have any more distractions anymore. I had nothing to do. I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and stare at the wall because I didn't have anything to do. And he was so clear, like, this is what I've called you to do, sweetheart. And like, we're not playing.
Yeah.
So giddy up, because everything you're afraid
Yeah.
of, the doubt you've been feeling, all these things, we're done with that. And even though it's not gone, I still struggle with it.
Mm.
I don't have a choice but to walk out boldly, because the freedom of the Lord is in our boldness, right? And our
Yeah.
willingness to just release our own control and just go and do the thing that He's called us to
Mm.
do when He's called us to do it. And it has been hard and
Mm.
scary and really stinking cool. Like the lives that are changed, the things we hear, like
Mm.
generations of issues that are now getting resolved.
Mm.
And all of this we're doing through the workplace, all of it. And, like there are people that find Christ at work, and there
Mm.
are people that find Christ at church, and there are people that find Christ in a parking lot. And, right, it all
Yeah.
happens.
Oh, yeah.
But I can tell you, as a Christian business owner, you better be ready. You better be ready, because if you're preaching about Jesus and you're not
Mm.
reflecting Him,
Mm.
and sometimes, right, it's just ignorance. Sometimes we don't realize it. We think because we've provided a job, we're doing the right thing, but we aren't loving,
Right.
and we aren't caring for, and we're
Right.
not thinking about all the people attached to that person that you just hired,
Mhm.
and how this job affects all of them.
Right.
And so now I have an amazing team, and like we kind of just, I knew I needed to be still and let him just
Mm.
do what he was going to do, and that's what we've been doing. And so today we get to work with these really cool businesses. We're not exclusive to Christian business owners. We work with everybody. But we know that we're here to restore God's design for work, because we know that if we have a healthy workplace, it will pour out into the families.
Mhm.
Because my parents worked so hard
Mhm.
and felt so undervalued and didn't like to go to work. And it was always like, oh, Monday's tomorrow. And, and I'm like,
Mhm.
not here. Here it is. I cannot
Mhm.
wait to get up and
Yeah.
and and go to work, and it's going to be
Mhm.
good, and we're going to help people, and change lives, and people will be
Mhm.
seen and their purpose, right? Like, how do we
Mhm.
tie, like, God gave you a purpose. How do we tie it into the work you're doing here? And if
Yeah.
it's not here, then let's walk it out with you. Let's be there with
Mhm.
you as you move on to the next thing. And so we do it here in our own business, but we bring this to the workplace. And, a lot of it is trust. A lot
Mhm.
of it is application, right? We read all these books. I mean, I'm like, books everywhere. I love
Uh-huh.
books, but people don't know how to apply it,
Right.
right? And so we're teaching them how to apply what it is they're working on
Mhm.
doing in their workplace, how to apply it, and then hold them accountable to
Mhm.
progress. And like conflict, accountability, it's like people don't like to talk about those things, but they're really good. Just like work is good, accountability, it's good. Conflict
Right.
is good. We'll never get great if we don't disagree,
Yes.
right? So it's like all these things.
Mhm.
I just want to get to everybody,
Mhm.
like I love executive coaching. Like I love it. I love leadership development, but
Mhm.
I don't want that to only be for the people at the top of an
Right.
organization. And I want to flip it on its head
Yep.
and say, okay, how do we elevate everyone in your
Yep.
organization? Because you're there to support them. You're there
Right.
for the firm foundation.
Right.
You're there for health and safety. That's your
Yeah.
job.
Right.
Casting vision, giving them purpose, making sure everybody's
Mhm.
going in the same direction. And, it's like I'm talking about it, and it isn't that simple. There's a
Right.
lot of moving parts, and sometimes you need a guide to help you with those moving parts to get you to
Mhm.
where you want to go. So that's how we got here. But had I not gone through the whole mess of like dropping out of college and then, setting the bar high for myself, and
Mhm.
it wasn't that any of those things were wrong. The
Yeah.
int- the driver behind it was just misled, right?
Yeah.
But if I wasn't misled, I wouldn't know how to see it today. And
Mhm.
so whether it be the grief of losing parents, or the just the heart-wrenching, your kid thinks your work is more important than them, or
Mhm.
your husband saying, I
Yeah.
feel like you're choosing that over us, and like I don't understand it. And if I
Mhm.
wasn't listening
Mhm.
to those small, like, key things, I would have missed out on, I don't know what could have happened. And
Yeah.
thankfully, marriage is good and kids are great, and, family's growing and all the cool things.
Mhm.
But, we gotta just create environments where people can speak freely
Mhm.
enough where you can get to the bottom of what the lie is
Right.
that they believe to be true. I couldn't leave because why? I was afraid of losing money. I was afraid of
Mhm.
not having insurance. I was afraid, afraid, afraid. I didn't think I was smart enough. I didn't think
Mhm.
anybody would want to hire me. What do I know? I'm not this grandiose, galvanizing, visionary, big whatever.
Mhm.
Because textbook doesn't say that. But the Lord said, Kristine, you are called, you are equipped, you better go.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm telling you, don't be a secret. I'm telling you to be bold with your boundaries. I'm telling you to let go and let me
Mhm.
do. And he's so clear, but he could only have become clear because I was quiet.
Mhm.
And so, in the pursuit of, all good things, I just had to learn how to be still.
I mean, thank you for unpacking that and for being vulnerable enough to unpack the really challenging parts because as you mentioned, like we often want to rush to the end and celebrate like where we
Mhm,
are now, but we
mhm,
have to embrace the process that led us here. And
mhm,
that's what really helps other people step into freedom as well.
mhm,
And
mhm.
that learning to be still and quiet so you can hear like
Yeah.
so many powerful, rich truths and,
Mhm.
this next question I'm gonna ask you, I know because I have been to a coffee shop with you in real life, as we shared. But for those who are watching or listening, are you a coffee drinker? And if so, how do you drink your coffee?
Oh, that's a good one. So, yes, I'm a coffee drinker. I'm also getting much older, so I've had to change a lot of the ways I drink it. So it is just a regular cup of coffee with cashew milk. That's all I have.
But hey, I mean, I've never tried cashew milk. I've been trying like some almond milk or things. I normally drink my coffee straight black in the morning, and then I'll try like a latte later, or if I'm out at a coffee shop. But
Mhm.
is almond milk similar to nut milk or cashew milk, or
Yeah, it's similar in, like, how it's processed. The
okay?
taste of it, cashew milk is a little more creamy and a little
Okay.
less watery, like, almonds
Okay.
don't have as much. I don't know if they have less fat in them or something, but,
Interesting.
yeah, so I love cashew milk, and
Okay.
it's easy to make, so you could make it yourself too.
Mm.
Cashews and water.
Pro tips over here. I'm a fan. So,
Yep.
if you were having a cup of coffee with the cashew milk that you have
Mhm.
made and you've
Mhm.
shared it with another warrior friend, right? So, you're
Mhm.
treating them to this homemade
Mhm.
cashew milk, which
Mhm.
sounds amazing, by the way.
Mhm.
And you're both chatting about life. They're sharing some
Mhm.
stuff about their becoming story.
Mhm.
How would you encourage them to become who God made them to be?
Hmm, that's such a great question. Um, I think I would encourage them first by just making sure that I hear what they're saying and understand fully what it is that, at least at this point, that they feel the Lord is leading them to.
Mm.
Um, and try to, I would be unpacking, right? Because like human behavior is my jam and I just love it. But I would want to unpack with them where the fear and doubt are coming from, and then make sure that they understand, that they're not a mistake,
Mm.
right? The
Yeah.
whatever has led them to this point actually prepared them, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, right? It prepared them for where they are in this moment,
Yeah.
and that God will, and He is,
Mm.
and will continue to be, be the rock on which
Mm.
everything else can be firmly planted.
Yeah.
Um, So, yeah, just making sure that fear and doubt aren't stealing your joy, and making sure that we understand what it sounds like in your head when you
Mm.
start to like panic, or I know what my panic sounds like and I know how to
Mhm.
say nope, but I'm almost 50. It took a long time,
Mhm.
right? But you got to
Mhm.
learn the narrative you tell yourself,
Mm.
and stay in the word enough where you know what the Lord sounds like, so that you can fight back with
Mm.
scripture, that we've already been given. We're already suited
Yeah.
up. So
Yeah.
just that encouragement of like, nope.
Mhm.
And if your armor isn't working, we're going to use mine for right now, right? And you
Yes.
just hop
Yep.
on. I got
Yep.
room.
Yep.
Yeah, everybody's a work in progress, and we should
Yeah.
remain so, um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that we can become who it is that He's
Mhm.
called us to be for our time. We
Yeah.
already know the destination, right? We
Exactly.
already know the destination. So
Exactly.
now it's just enjoying the
Mm.
experiences He's going to lead us through.
No, that's
Yeah.
beautiful words of warrior encouragement. Thank you for sharing that. It's so empowering. And, I know that people are listening and watching and they're like, okay, I am resonating with what Kristine's sharing. And I've also heard her talk about her company and her business. So if somebody wanted to learn more about even working with you, more
Hmm.
connecting with you beyond just hearing your story, and they want to take
Hmm.
some of those next steps to become free themselves,
Hmm.
how can they connect with you? What are some things that they can even connect to?
Yeah. So we have a website. It's accompanysuite.com, and I'm sure in your there's links to
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah, so you can connect with us on there if you're looking for more like just technical application of like, oh, how do I respond versus react, or how do I get my mindset right, or
Mm.
whatever. We have a YouTube channel that has like quick videos on
Cool.
those things. And if you're an organization that's just,
Mm.
like, we want more training and development for our
Mm.
people, and we're ready to put our people first before the system or the process,
Mm.
that's us. We would love to come in, help equip them so
Mm.
that the systems and processes can be transformed by them. We can tell you how
Mhm.
to do it, but it's not going to help anybody on your
Right,
team. But we
right.
can guide them on how to do it.
Mm.
So really, they could contact me. We've got other coaches depending on the situation. If it's more like relationship based or life based or teams, we have coaches
Mm.
for that. We have programs for the universities. We've just recently done, it's on social, so I can talk about it, some work with University of Florida, College of Central Florida,
Mhm.
just preparing them. We want to get out and prevent some of the workplace challenges that happen today by being the first thing they hear about the workplace on how to make
Mhm.
it good and how to handle conflict and
Mhm.
how to embrace differences versus,
Yeah.
thinking we know it all. But there's all sorts of options out there. But our website, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, pick up the phone and call us. We'll pick up the phone. We'll call you back if we don't.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah,
I
lots
love
of
it.
options.
And we
Mhm.
will 100% have all the links, all the things in the show notes. You can easily click and connect with Kristine. And, Kristine, as we're wrapping up your becoming story today, is there anything else that you would want to share to equip and encourage a warrior friend with?
Yeah. Just be where you are.
Mm,
Be present where you are. I would say we talk a lot about work life balance, and you,
mm,
we try to separate those two things. And that's kind of like in my world, I don't know that that's the correct approach.
yeah,
Um, your life is your life.
right.
Just know where you are
Mm,
and have some good boundaries,
mm,
right? Like Henry Cloud's our guy, right? Have great boundaries on what you're willing to
mm,
do and not do in each place so that there isn't so much overlap that you are everywhere all the time.
mhm,
And just never just stop learning. Read, read, read. Books
mm,
don't cost much,
yeah,
right? And so if you're trying to save up for a college education so you can pay for it, that's
yep,
great. Get some books in the meantime.
mhm,
Do your research, but just be where you are and be present,
mm,
and enjoy it. You don't have to rush.
yeah.
Yeah, everything will come in the time that it's meant to come.
That's so good, and as you reminded us earlier, the value in laughing, because if we're laughing, we're learning, so
Mhm.
enjoying it along the way.
Yeah,
You are
yeah.
just amazing. You encourage
Aw,
and inspire me so much, and
thank you.
I'm really grateful for our time, together, both at the coffee shop and here sharing your becoming
Yeah,
story. Who you are, who you're becoming is inspiring to me, and I know to so many others, so thank you for sharing the gift of you. Um,
mhm.
I love you and I'm cheering you on big
Aw,
time.
thank you. I love you too. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for what you're doing. It's such a great outlet, I think sometimes we're always going so fast, we forget
Yeah.
about the things that brought us here, so even
Mhm.
to just have a space where people can look
Yeah.
back, I haven't
Mm.
timelined anything in a long time, so it was fun to take a look back
Yeah.
even, to think about what we were gonna talk about today, so, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.